So, hi everyone. So, I'm going to talk about culture. I step frequent multicultural crowd here, so maybe she will see. So, please get this move. Uh, so my name is Talia and I'm very direct. That was about the feedback I received again and again early in my career. So I go to warehouse, chat, smile, everyone jumping, help to be a campaign, do my best. But then I go home, next day I get feedback that apparently some people perceive me as a bit too blunt, robotic, and even maybe too cold. And the thing is, I was very confused because where I come from, that was friendly. So, and the thing is, wherever this guy come from, it's cultural expectation. It's from culture. The culture shows up everywhere in what we build, what we do, how we prioritize, or what we define as a minimum product. And quite often, it does it silently until it breaks something. I don't know about it. So, how it shapes products? It's pretty much the alterating system beneath our daily work. We don't see it until something goes wrong. Um, and it's not just nationality, even though here I'm using nationality as an example because it's visible, it's obvious, it's relatable. But so wider than that. Cultures and our roles and our professions, and even maybe in sex rights. And even an all British team can be cultural mindfit. Engineers, product managers, designers, each comes their own definition of good and what good is. So the same ideas, whilst I'm talking about national cultures, the same ideas can apply a lot wider. You can use them in managing remote teams or mainly cross-functional squads, or even again, trying to understand why every single spec message didn't look right. Next, so I'm trying to look at how culture affects products that we build in three levels. It's you, the PM, your biases, your expectations, your confusions at times, your T, how do we cooperate? How do we give feedback? How do we disagree? How do we prioritize? But also company culture to a degree. And your users. Whatever we build, uh, users bring their own values and expectations to it whenever they try to use it. Next are you, the product managers. We all believe we are rational thinkers. But unfortunately, we all bring our own cultural defaults to all our decision making. And we believe that something is normal, but our normal is shaped by experience, by our lived experience, maybe by expectation, by cultural norms. So the culture primarily shapes the questions you asked. And that's very important point, because if you're not aware of your cultural race, you are ending up building product for yourself and you don't understand yours right. So we don't come from neutral maze and it's actually impossible and no one wants that. But you need to be aware of our own biases. Next, your teeth. And it's not just who your team is, it's what your team in common believes. It's probably the most important point. Because we all make assumptions. And culture shapes all of those things whenever you read them all. But the thing is, teams have their expectation on how things supposed to work. And I had a really great and talented PM working in Kiev. And she was amazing. She's so sharp, always giving amazing feedback, thinking ahead, planning. But I kept getting really negative feedback from everyone in London saying how abrupt and collaborative and new rude she was. On the other hand, I had telepathy here often question London pairs since they're too vague. He keeps saying that everything is amazing, but send me a list of 20 changes. Why not just say it in the first place? So they all came from the same place. It's not about having different ideas of what we're building, but they're different expectations of how we perceive collaboration. So we might share an org chart, we might share KPIs and goals, but it doesn't mean we have the same understanding of how we work together. And then to users, definitely is the most important bit. That should really shape your product. But unfortunately, your users don't share your defaults. It would have been very easy if you'd been building it just for ourselves and roll it out, but it doesn't. So culture shapes user expectations as well. So when they get to your product and try to use it, they'll have certain expectations of made on the market, the lived experience, where they come from, and still what it should deliver. So when we expanded to Germany, it wasn't really a question of translation. It was a lot more than that. And of course, some of the UX patterns didn't really work and was trying to keep the character limit to his German words and CTA was a nightmare. But the main challenge was around understanding needs. And for example, we had to implement paying by invoice, where you receive your goods, but you only pay for them in 30 days. And it's not really credit because you're not paying use output. And it was, 10 years ago, now it's quite common. And I had a very strong pushback from the team because developers just couldn't believe that it's not just a real map item, but a preferred one. So good design is not universal. It's only good in the context the user say. So bit intentional. Has anyone seen The Arrival? Yeah. Just very else. Basically, it's about a team of linguists trying to understand the message of the alien species they're trying to deliver. And everyone sees the same message. It's the same symbols, the same signs. Everyone interprets it differently, depending where they come from. Pretty much every single country took something else from it and acted accordingly. Fortunately, and it's product misunderstandings, we are not starting intellect wars with each other, but misunderstanding can lead to featurable or maybe to adoption of the product stalling, or maybe just product not working at all. So the main profit actually based agent being realized during the ads. So main problem is our perception is shaped by our own defaults and then not inverse. And challenges is why we're building products where we are defining what it should look like and not our users. And if we're not catching ourselves by doing that, the product won't work. So what do we do about it? Quick culture, quick checklist. So the questions we should ask when we're trying to build something. What assumptions am I making based on my own experience? That in my team, align how we make decisions and communicate. And then are we designing for our users' expectations or projecting our own? Because what we is not universe. And it's not about translations, but understanding. So if culture is visible, public performs extended, which is learning for ourselves and both products, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. By asking those questions, we make our cultural lens and biases visibly, and hence it becomes intentional as to how we act on that. At the same time, I keep talking about national difference, cultural differences as friction, but it's not just that. It's actually strategic strengths, depending on how you approach it. Because if you know your biases, you also know your strength, and you can lean into power, and you can potentially work with your team who brings all the diverse perspectives and ask the questions you wouldn't ask. At the same time, you from the got these head cultures, and I believe it's strong culture and strong perspective. It shapes non-silos to work. It provides us with leaves a sharp focus on what we need to deliver and what we need to build. And then the local insight. It's very important to understand these, both we all know that. And when you go too nuanced, you might risk building something very, very complex. But at the same time, understanding the nuance, you also understand the common grounds. Because when it sees the differences, you understand where it actually matches, and you can build globally and hopefully solve the problem in wider scale. So the culture meets product. The point I'm trying to make here is cultural awareness is not an afterthought. It's not a soft skill. It's a strategic, fundamental product skill that we always need to use. It's strategic. It impacts how fast we build, how focused we are, how much buy-in we get, and ultimately the impacts our product base. So, we must treat culture like usability. We must test our assumptions and test our expectations and make sure we're building for the users. We're building for the real world, not for our youth. Thank you.